Hello and welcome to another episode of Scott Reads Comics. Today I'm going to cover The Savage Sword of Conan, Volume 11, the Dark Horse Essential Edition, published in 2012 by Dark Horse Comics. This one is the halfway point in my coverage of this 22-volume set, long out of print from Dark Horse Comics. They're, of course, black and white reprints of the black and white Savage Sword of Conan magazine. And these are fantastic, and I think it's a nice service for folks who are interested in tracking these volumes down to kind of go through and see the content of each volume, not linger too long on any one story, but just give folks a survey of what's in the volume as we move along through the series. Back cover here by Bill Sienkiewicz with an inset piece by, it looks like almost Val Zemeckis here. It doesn't look like Buscema. We'll see once we get into the story. Collecting issues 112 through 120 of the long, out-of-print Savage Sword of Conan the Barbarian from Marvel Comics. And this originally retailed for $19.95 or $19.99 back in 2012 when it came out. So what a bargain. Of course, we know if we check on eBay, these are going to go for a little more than that. And as I think the series went along, as I've mentioned before, I think the print runs got a little smaller. And so the more sought after, more valuable volumes are the ones from 11 to 22, at least in my experience, as I built my collection a few years ago. I have the complete run, of course. So let's get into it. Great inset piece here underneath our table of contents by Rudy Nebres. Really nice. We do get a little bit of Rudy Nebres in here. Writing credits for the whole book are Don Carr, Larry Yakata, Michael Fleischer, and Craig Anderson. We have artists Dave Simons, Ernie Chan, Rudy Nebres, Val Merrick, Gary Quapis, Pablo Marcos, Will Johnson, Ray Garcia, Tony Salmons, Andy Kubert, Henry Bismuth, Morty Rudy Nebres, Sal Buscema, Roy Richardson, Rod Wiggum, and Roy Richardson again. Okay, so we'll tick them off as we move along here, folks. First one is Conan 112. A Dream of Empire is the first story. Michael Fleischer, Dave Simons, and then Mitra Defend Us with pencils by William Johnson. Cover art is Joe Jusko here. So this is a nice piece here by Rudy Nebres. I like this Dave Simons artwork. His Conan is a little less bulky than, say, John Buscema's or Ernie Chan's is. But I do like his figure work. He does some really nice backgrounds. Look at this city work here. This is great. Of course, this was done pre-internet, so these artists were working from a morgue file of images, and they just did incredible work. This is obviously pre-digital stuff. So, because Conan figure work isn't always consistent through the story, but it's always interesting. Look at this great encampment here. And some gorgeous ladies, of course. Love this long panel here, almost Paul Smith-like in its design. Of course, he employs the open panel as well to break up the story and make a more interesting panel arrangement. Look at this full page ambush scene. Love it when Conan wields a tulwar, not just the traditional broadsword. Really cool. Oh, we have an execution here. Love it too, this sequence here of these wordless, almost wordless panels. Late that night on the palace grounds. And we can see the storytelling here. Very little dialogue. Just brilliant storytelling. Fleischer letting Simons tell the tale with his art. Yeah, so this is a great one. Another awesome, this is a double page spread here. And of course, I love the newsprint. Does have an ASMR quality to it as your hand glides across the page. Oh my, this woman comes to a terrible end here. And then this is the William Johnson backup here with inks by Ray Garcia. William Johnson did not do much work in Savage Sword. He didn't do much work in comics in general, I think, unless I'm missing a long indie run on some title. I love the stuff he did on Daredevil after Klaus Janson left. And of course, Klaus Janson had succeeded Frank Miller. So it was quite a lot to live up to for William Johnson, but he rose to the occasion. His figure work was really precise. Much tighter than Dave Simon's if you compare him to the arts we just saw. And his Conan is a little more traditional looking. Of course, he's wearing that two-horned helmet that was made famous in Beyond the Black River. And of course, these are picks. This is a Black River related. It's probably a Black River adjacent story. Next up, Conan 113. Story, Larry Yakata. Art by Ernie Chan. And then the backup is Don Carr with art by Tony Salmons. So two very different art styles for the two stories in this one. Of course, Ernie Chan, just a tremendous craftsman. He's got that heavy, heavy style. His Conan is very thickly built. Lines are very strong. And again, brilliant storyteller Ernie Chan is. I do prefer his inks to his pencils, but his pencils are pretty awesome too. So you can't really go wrong with an Ernie Chan told story. It's funny to see him without Buscema, you know, just inking and penciling and inking his own stuff. Man, could he draw a monster. Wow, look at this. This is like storytelling 101 for comic artists here. This is tremendous. Ishtar. Look at that. Wow, what a payoff. I haven't opened this volume since before I hit play here, or record, I should say. So it's been a long time since I've read these stories. Some of these I would have bought off the rack in magazine form. And folks, we're 93 pages in, and I have to have my Conan public service announcement. This is our first ape sighting in this volume. So we went 93 pages without seeing an ape, and now we have what looks like a dozen or more on one page. Pretty awesome too. And man, they are getting into it with Conan, and he has driven them off. Pretty great. Yeah, excellent nautical scene here on this raft or on this small island. Of course, they're going to slay this boar. They're going to find some treasure in another beast here, another aquatic monstrosity. And look at these man-eating, look like gar, tiger gar fish. Conan doesn't just slay monsters, he also slays men. Then here we have the Tony Salmons. This is going to be a big contrast, folks, as we get to the second backup story here. Tony Salmon's artwork is very loose compared to Ernie Chan's. You're getting a much different experience here. Not a big fan of, I mean, anyone who can get into professional comics and draw, I mean, I admire them. As someone who can't draw and would love to be able to draw, but I'm not as big a fan of Tony Salmon's stuff as I am, of course, with someone like Chan, Ernie Chan. Next issue, 114, Larry Yakata, art by Rudy Nebres, and then the backup is Don Carr and Andy Kubert. So, man, this is great. I do own this issue because I own every Rudy Nebres issue. I think that he did for Savage Sword, whether he inked it or drew it. This one, he pencils and inks it. And yeah, this is my favorite. If you've watched the show before, you know how much I love Rudy Nebres' work, and he is my favorite Conan artist. Just really awesome. I always use the adjective lush to describe his work, and it certainly is. I love his inks over Buscema's pencils too, but I did it on, if you're interested in more Rudy Nebres and Rudy Nebres in color, I did do King Conan number 18, which was a Rudy Nebres tour de force color issue. So we got some, these guys are not apes, but they're like ape men. They're kind of ape adjacent, so I won't call them out as full-on apes, but Still only had the one instance so far on this volume. And this Rudy Nebres. Yeah, you think Ernie can draw monsters? Well, so can Rudy. Wow, look at that dinosaur. Very cool. And of course, Conan will employ whatever weapon he can. Stalactites, stalagmites, whatever it takes. Gorgeous open panel here. Look at this. And here he faces a demonic foe that I believe he's faced in the past. And he's got to fight his way out. Great job here. This looks almost like an Oni from D&D, one of those Eastern-inspired magical ogres, but he's definitely a demon, for sure. And these artists doing this black and white artwork, they knew what they were getting into. It wasn't going to be colorized, so they prepared for that. And this is nice too. This is that Andy Kubert backup. Very well drawn here. And this would be early Andy Kubert too, as he's just becoming a full-on professional. Of course, son of Joe Kubert, brother of Adam Kubert. The Kubert Art Dynasty. Of course, the Joe Kubert Art School, which I believe is now defunct, but man, they put a lot of comics professionals through that program, and they made it into business. Next up, issue 115 of Savage Sword. Art by a story by Larry Yakata, art by Val Merrick, cover Joe Jusko, and then Henry Bismuth does the backup. And Val Merrick does a very solid Conan. Much more rugged looking Conan, not maybe quite as handsome as we see with Buscema, but dynamic nonetheless. This, of course, we're starting off here. Oh, look at these giant, looks like a giant leech or something. Very cool. So we've got a strong nautical theme here. Conan finds a tribe of islanders. He's going to come back and help his friend here, who's got his leg broken by the giant clam. Yeah, very primal looking Conan from Val Merrick. Really nice, consistent work here. Oh, wow. Brutal strike on this guy's jugular here with the broadsword. Conan's taking no prisoners, as is his wont. Doing some training here, a little training montage. And here's Henry Bismuth's backup. This is nice. This Henry Bismuth is solid art. Rudy Nebres inks. That's cool. Nice team up here with these two. The styles mesh very well. Oh, look at these guys. Look like Chaos Warriors. Conan just beheads one of them. Or no, what's he do here? Oh, he throws some kind of animal at them. I don't know if it's a dog or a pig. I think it's a pig. Pretty. Anything is a weapon in Conan's hands. He's like Bullseye. And he rides off victorious. Nice Ernie Chan pinup here. And then here's that Sienkiewicz cover that we saw on the back. Lords of the Falcon, story by Larry Yakata, art by Ernie Chan, and then The Boon with art by Sal Buscema and Roy Richardson, story by Don Krar for the backup. And yeah, this is going to be a return of one of Conan's recurring enemies, the Brotherhood of the Falcon. Of course, this is called Lords of the Falcon. Great Ernie Chan artwork here. Maybe not. Oh yeah, here they are. Here they are. These guys, they're always trying to kill Conan, and it always ends so poorly for them. Conan showing that he can be kindly and gentle to his friends, not always a pitiless savage. Of course, here we go. My brethren, your unseen forays have done us well. It is as planned. Gual is now alone. Go quickly and ensure that the cursed Cimmerian returns never too soon. So they have a plan afoot. Of course, Conan is right in the middle of it, even though he doesn't quite realize it. Here, Conan runs afoul of the Brotherhood. They get him here. They've got these bull whips. They're threatening to overwhelm him, but a trade, Falconer. My thumbs for the sword. So yeah, Conan's a dirty fighter for sure. Fights his way through that ambush. His friend Gual, is he really his friend? Oh, he ties this guy up for the tide to claim him. So each of these conspirators he traps and does away with in a very specific fashion. Great battle scene here. Actually, this is really just a scene of carnage as the Brotherhood of the Falcon are taking this castle apart. And Conan victorious, of course. Next up, the Boon. We didn't see a lot of Sal Buscema in Savage Sword, but this is one of the few glimpses we get of his work here. Inked by Roy Richardson. You see the classic Sal figure work here. His Conan, very different from his brother John's. Pretty great here, full page. Conan dealing out some rough justice. But you'll find my my friendship faithful unto death. And here is our cover piece that they used for the cover of this volume, Winds of Akagar. Very Akata story, Gary Quappi's inks. Of course, the cover is a Michael Golden cover. And then Rod Wiggum and Roy Richardson do our backup story. So I love Gary Quappi's. His stuff is just so detailed and tightly penciled. I mean, this is incredible. I don't think as a kid reading these stories, I appreciated just how good, how incredibly detailed Gary Quappi's work on this title was. And as we get through into the later volumes, we're going to see a lot more Gary Quappi's. Page 320. This is our second ape sighting, folks, and it's a two-headed ape. So, yeah, and Conan, of course, managed to behead both of them. But it's not actually an ape. Look, it is a guy in an ape suit, which is pretty crazy. I'm still counting it, though. And Gary Quappi's, he draws beautiful women for sure. He draws a lithe, muscular Conan, too, just a really cool-looking Conan. A little similar in appearance to Val Merrick's, but I think much better rendered than Val Merrick's Conan. All his figures. Like, this looks almost... I'm sure that Gary Quappi's was using some photo references here for some of these characters because they're just so real and the rendering is so detailed. Oh, giant scorpion. Really cool. Of all the giant monsters we get to see in various Conan stories, I don't think we get enough giant scorpions. So here we have one who is really fearsome. This, oh man. Oh yeah, this is the Brotherhood of the Falcon again, showing up to try and do Conan in. These guys really have it bad for Conan. Look at that. That's just tremendous. Look at that. Wow. Oh man, that's incredible. What a sequence there. And then this is Rod Wiggum and Roy Richardson on the backup story written by Don Carr. This is cool. Rod Wiggum did so much great work on G.I. Joe. You forget, like, he's just a really great artist. Very solid. Great story. Briefly told, really well done. We get a second Gary Quappies in a row. That's awesome. And we get a Tony Salmon's backup. This story is written by Larry Yakata, and then Don Carr writes the backup. And Joe Jusko does our cover, which is really nice. Nice Mike Dougherty, Del Barris pinup here. Dougherty would, of course, go on to have a long run on Conan the King, the color comic, double-sized every month. A lot of work he put in on that title. Yeah, this is a strong volume. I'm gonna call it just because of the Rudy Nebres influence and this excellent Gary Quappies, our second straight Gary Quappies story. Oh my goodness, so good. Really tremendous illustrator, great storyteller, good panel designer, Gary Quappies. He's just a total package. Oh, wow, and here we have a Manticore. Really awesome. That's pretty great. We have a number of pieces. And so our cover pays off a little bit here, because oftentimes on Savage Sword the cover doesn't, but in this case it does, because we get sort of a shot of what we saw on the cover from Joe Jusko. Oh my, look at those entrails. That's the thing we loved about Savage Sword as kids, was it just like it was a level of violence and adult situations, let's just call them, that we would not see in the color comic. As I often point out when I'm going through one of these volumes, just every story will remind you that, wow, this was definitely a magazine book, not really for kids in particular, though my parents were just like, whatever, he's reading, it's fine. And it was. These comics were a huge influence on me, on my ability to become a better communicator, a better writer. The stories were well wrought for the most part, and you could learn a lot from, some of the verbiage that was used by the writers. They weren't afraid to toss around words that you might see later on the SAT. And here we have Alchemy, from another backup by Tony Salmons, who's a good storyteller for sure. I don't want to bag on him too much. He is a professional artist. I just find his Conan to be a little bit loose for my taste. So we're up to 119, just 2 issues left. Cover by Ernie Chan, which was rare. He didn't get to do a lot of covers. The interior art is by Ernie Chan as well, and this could be an all Ernie Chan issue. We do have a Ray Garcia pinup here. Homecoming is the title. And maybe I think Conan is going back to Samaria here in this issue. He's calling himself Amra, though, which was the name he used when he sailed with the Black Corsairs. Look at this hag. She definitely has a look about her. He's a dangerous man. Don't underestimate him. She must be this guy's advisor, who's fast becoming Conan's rival here in this story. Conan fighting those hounds. Wow. Yeah, Ernie Chan. This is Conan's father was a blacksmith, so he's back to his roots here. Now, Crom set my enemies before me. Pretty great. So he's going to get revenge. Love this armor. Love that helmet. Oh, man, he splits this guy right down the middle. Oh, brutal here. This woman's going to drown that hag. So Conan is going to face off against his rival. Oh, wow. Brutal action in these stories for sure. Yeah, it was a full-length story by Chan. Wow. That's the thing, too. These artists back in the day, and we're at our last issue, 120, they could move at a pace. Their artwork, they could crank out 30, 40 pages a month of quality art. It's not so today, even with all the digital assistance that artists have. They just seem to work more slowly. Story by Larry Yakata, art by Pablo Marcos. I should mention that Diana Albers letters most of these. Bob Larkin cover here. And we don't see a lot of Pablo Marcos as a full-on artist, as a penciler and an inker, and this is nice. I wouldn't not close the book before finishing on this Pablo Marcos story. It is good. He was a guy who could make anyone's pencils look better, look tight. Just a fabulous inker, and you forget that Pablo was an accomplished artist all by himself. And you see that here, without even the aid of color, how great his stuff can look. Because he's just a man who knows his way around a brush. Oh, look at this werewolf. Awesome. Wow, that's great. Pretty cool. Reminds me of the Man God character, the Man Wolf character from Marvel superhero comics. Neat looking character. Man, he breaks his neck. Brutal. Now we have a serpent man. This is pretty awesome. And of course, Conan shows up to help out here at the end. And of course, a quiet moment of celebration. And that is it. And that does it for our story. Our whole volume, 534 pages of awesome, I think. So yeah, what do you think? Is this something that you would pursue? These are long out of print. This is volume 11 of Dark Horse's Savage Sword reprints. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends, and I'll bring you more soon on Scott Reads Comics. Thanks for watching.